friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm going to be discussing the 6 books that I read in the month of February. If y'all saw me on Goodreads finish Daisy Jones the 6th on March 2nd, no you did not. I finished it February 28th. But like I said, I read 6 books. 3 of them are physical copies. 1 of those copies was a reread, and then 3 of them are ARCs/new releases that should be out now. Yeah. Alright, let's just kind of get into it. I'm starting off with the books that I own physically and have read. Starting off with the reread, and that is Daisy Jones the 6th by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Again, if you saw me finish this in the beginning of March, you did not. But this is an adult historical fiction novel following a fictional band called Daisy Jones the 6th, and they broke up several years ago. I think like 30 or so years ago, I want to say. And they have never spoken about like what led to the rise of the band, why they broke up, until now. All band members are coming together for an interview to discuss the highs, the lows, and the eventual downfall of Daisy Jones the 6th. You guys have heard this is a book, it's a TV show now. I love the TV show. Sam Claflin is the king of book adaptations. The king. But this is told in interview format, super quick and easy read, and just really discusses more of Taylor Jenkins Reid's like favorite things, which is very unreliable narrators, 1, and secondly, the concept that you can have multiple soulmates. I've read this throughout Taylor Jenkins Reid's multiple novels. I have 1 more, and that is One True Loves, that I have yet to finish, that I have yet to read. But all of her novels, like even her backlisted works, in some sense discuss the concept of having multiple soulmates, having more than one person. All that you need to be with that person is just timing. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know what else to say. I love Daisy Jones in the 6th. This is such like, from the unreliable narrators to the to the callbacks to Fleetwood Mac, to the music that is now being made, to just like the 60s rock and roll era. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I love it so much. It's just perfection in my eyes. Like, yes, there are flaws. Yes, I understand that. But to me, this book is perfect and will always be perfect and will never not be perfect. So therefore, it's perfect. But I love this book. I love rereading it. I love being back in the world of Daisy Jones the 6th and seeing all of these things and getting a chance to like really immerse myself in the book before I started the TV show. Highly recommend it if you guys haven't done it already. If you guys haven't read the book, I recommend it. I'm seeing like the TV show Eddie is clearly the more like Mal. It's like TV show Mal. TV show Eddie is the better of the 2 Eddies. But I need y'all to read the books desperately before getting in the TV show, because if I see one more Eddie apologist out there saying Eddie is the best character, no, he's not. He's not. He's decent. He is a man with many flaws, many inferiority complexes, and just a general like terrible human being. He's not great. So I need y'all to read this to understand how not great he is before y'all start fawning over him in the TV show, because he is slightly better in the TV show, just enough to be able to be likable, to be tolerable. I also have a full-length review of Daisy Jones in the 6th that I did back when I first read the book. So if you guys want to see my thoughts on that, I will leave that link down below, as well as my actual physical review that I made back on Goodreads. I think I also made an update review for that, so that should be on Goodreads and Storygraph as well. So I'll leave those linked down below for y'all. The next physical book that I read was Blood Promise by Rochelle Mead. This is a YA paranormal romance fantasy following Rose Hathaway, as she is part of this elite group of half vampire, half human people who are like designed and trained to protect the royalty that is the pure-blooded vampires. Her guardian, her like preferred person to guard when graduation comes is Lissa. This is the 4th book in the overall book series of 6. I made an entire vlog of this discussing my thoughts and my feelings. I'll leave that link down below. I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Did I think the pacing was a little weird and kind of off? Also yes. Do I think that the last like quarter of the book really made up the rest of the book for me and like sort of like brought it back from me giving it a 3 out of 5 stars because of how like slow paced the book is and how much like development and like building there is? Absolutely. But I did enjoy it nonetheless. It is probably like, again, probably like on the bottom of what I've read so far, of like if I had to rank all the Vampire Academy books, it probably would have been closer to like where 3 was, where it's just very slow, very like not boring, but there's just a lot of setup going on. So now I have books 5 and 6 left, so if you guys want to follow me on that journey of reading through the entire Vampire Academy novels, I will leave that playlist of my reading vlogs down below, and you can just scroll down and find the first one. But I am enjoying this series. I like the world. I like the almost like the specificities that Rochelle Mead has created within this novel, and I like kind of like the expansion of the world beyond the academy, beyond just like what's been going on in the past 3 books before this. It's a lot of development, lots of build up, and I'm really scared for the next for books 5 and 6, because that means I have 2 books left, and a lot can go wrong in 2 books. And the next and last physical book I read is actually a new release. If you guys have been following me for like at least a month, you know what that release is, and that is Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. This is the final book in the Last Hours trilogy, and this is a YA historical fantasy following young Cordelia Carstairs as she travels to London for a new start after her dad kind of caused some scandal from them, and reunites I should say, with James, Lucy Herringdale, and the rest of the Merry Thieves, and they kind of get up into their own little issues, I should say. This is the last book in the trilogy, and I had high hopes for this one. I wanted it to be a 5 stars. I desperately wished it was a 5. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. There were just some issues that I had, mainly with the pacing and kind of like certain character developments, I should say, but mainly the pacing, and it kind of gave me Queen of Air and Darkness vibes. I will link my spoiler-free review and my spoiler-filled vlog down below for you guys to see, so you guys can get more of that information if you guys wanted to see the full extent of my thoughts and what exactly had me so disappointed from the book, and why I wish it was such a better ending. But yeah, 4 out of 5. I'm really hesitant now to continue on with the last leg of the Shadowhunter books, which is the Wicked Powers, because the last few endings, aside, like the most recent endings, which is Chain of Thorns and Queen of Air and Darkness, just hasn't been hitting the way it's been hitting. So I feel like it's just missing something, and I'm hoping that the Wicked Powers wraps everything up in a pretty little bow, but I genuinely have no idea if that will be the case, or if I will just be disappointed again, which would be very sad, because I have loved the in-between books, like 1, 2, and then every time since The Dark Artifice, that the 3rd book has just been kind of a bit of a letdown for me. So we will see how this goes. Moving on to the 3 arcs that I have, and thank you to, I believe, NetGalley and Penguin Teen for giving me these arcs. 2 of them are from Penguin Teen and 1 is from NetGalley, and since HarperCollins finally signed some things and discussed with the union that they have, I can now talk about the final book. But let me talk about the one NetGalley book that I have first, and that is Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell. This is a YA, I believe, kind of like a cozy fantasy following a young girl whose name I'm forgetting. Her powers are out of control. She doesn't know how to control them, doesn't know how to understand them, and they're very volatile. She is in the way of becoming like a well-known wizard or witch in her community, and is just trying to find her way and figure out how to control her powers. That is until one day she accidentally attacks her father in a fit of rage, and ends up making him brutally, really injured, and really just needing help to figure out how to undo this curse she's cast upon him. She turns to a childhood friend who she promises to give her powers to him if he can help her heal her father. And the 2 of them kind of embark on a like cute little friends to lovers / acquaintances to lovers romance, where they get to explore this young girl's powers, and she can finally get some understanding as to why her powers are so uncontrollable, and how she can get a better grasp on them. Not gonna lie, disappointed with this one. I give this a 3 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy the characters, and I love the world building of it all. I loved all the different laws and the different and the magic system, and how magic kind of has its own. It has its own, like, specifically with her magic. I don't know how it is with everyone else, but it has a mind of its own. Quite literally, it speaks to her, and they have a language of their own that they have to talk one another with. And I just like the policy, the political aspect, and just a general overall world building of the novel. The things that dinged me personally were the pacing of the novel. I felt like there was a lot of repetition, and by the end of it, by the last quarter of the book, maybe even the last 30% of the novel, it was just trying to rush to wrap things up. We were trying to rush to wrap things up between the main character and her love interest, between the main character and her powers, between the main character and her mother, and all the things she can and can't do. and then the kind of like the larger scale of like the world building, which is like that the people are currently looking for a way to heal depression. Essentially, they call it melancholy in the novel, but they're looking for a way to heal depression. And the current, like, temporary but very damaging way is by taking a potion called Joy, which causes them to become like almost like a catatonic, but like also like almost in a psychosis kind of state where it's all hallucinations. They're not all there, and they just kind of eventually fall asleep for the rest of their lives until they can fix this. There's just a lot of like bigger aspects that I felt like could have been handled better had this book either gotten a few more 100 pages or so, just to flesh out and really dive deep into the relationships, the politics, and then like even the magic system to a point, while also giving headway to wrap up the bigger issue that is like the depression and these illegal potions that are trying to cure this issue. I was just waiting for something to happen. I wanted something so badly to happen. And I was expecting the bigger moments that happen at the end of the book to happen interspersed within the novel, but it just didn't. But it's just one of those things where it's like I wanted more out of it, and I feel like I got kind of like almost half of what I should have gotten with this novel, and he's back on the paper bag. We're just going to talk over the crinkling. This is how it's going to have to be. But yeah, I was just kind of disappointed. It's still a decent novel, very cozy fantasy if you're trying to get into the genre. Very sweet, soft kind of romance, but it was just missing something. It tried to be bigger than it actually was, and it just didn't work out because of the short page time. The next novel is actually a poetry, sort of like a poetry collection, and that is Enter the Body by Joe McCullough. McCullough. Yes, this is a YA poetry collection. I believe Joey McCullough wrote an adult poetry collection called Paint Body Water, I want to say is the book. But this is the YA. Again, thank you to Penguin Teen for sending me these last 2 books on my wrap up. But this one is a YA kind of like poetry collection involving a lot of like major female characters from the Shakespeare sense. We get to see Juliet, we get to see Cordelia, Ophelia, we get to see, I forgot who else, there's a couple more in there that we get to see, but I haven't read Henry VIII yet, so I don't really know what that one is about, but I think those are the 4 or 5 protagonists. I'm missing one more. Lavinia was the young girl in there. It's all of them kind of coming together and like kind of retelling their stories almost to make room for a more feminist retelling and like a better understanding of like what their characters were going through, what their headspaces were, and just a more modern sense of like them realizing that they like are pressed upon and like they were given such a small role and like a very diminished role for the sake of a man being able to thrive, and like they suffered and died literally for all of them in order for this to happen. I actually really enjoyed this one. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the characters interacting with each other. It was a very entertaining thing for me to read, and I love seeing them create their own little takes on like what their happy ending should look like. Juliet's was more idealistic, Cordelia's was a bit more realistic, but more still kind of like happy, and then Ophelia's was still like, again, still very sad, but she kind of had more of she was more fleshed out in her version. And then Lavinia was just, girl couldn't talk. Girl didn't have a tongue or hands, but we got to see kind of these characters interact and see kind of like the layers of like what masculinity and like misogyny has done on their person, on their stories, and everything in between. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I think, when is this one out? This one comes out March 14th, and Enter the Body comes out, or this one comes out March 14th, and Flower Heart is also out March 14th. And the last book that I read for the month of February was Chloe and the Cowshow Boys by May Kyoto. This is a YA coming-of-age story following a young girl named Chloe who is about to go to college in the States, but her father decides to like let her aunt start hooking her up with blind dates in an attempt to keep her in the Philippines. All this while a backdrop of her wanting to become an animator and her debut coming up. It's just a whole thing. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy this coming of age. We get to see Chloe struggle through so many things, such as imposter syndrome, such as wanting to communicate with her father, and like liking boys, and like being in the middle of like her friend's relationship drama, and all the things in between. I think I might be making a review video for this, so keep an eye out for that, at least I think next week. We'll see. But I did give this, like I said, a 4 out of 5 stars and not the full 5. I felt like the romance aspect of it, while it was placed pretty heavily in the synopsis, was kind of almost like on a back burner, but also not on a back burner. Can you get off of that? I felt like there wasn't so much of a mystery as to who she was going to choose in terms of like her boyfriend from the list of men that her father picked out for her, simply because it was pretty obvious who she was going to end up with. I didn't question what was going to happen. I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be the dude. Just from like the first description, I was like, yeah. And I was like, maybe I'm wrong. And then as it goes on, I was like, no, I was spot on correctly. And then I felt like all that emphasis on the romance kind of dwindled down toward the end, which I was really disappointed to see. And I kind of would like to see more of Chloe and her new beau in like their like long distance relationship issues and see how that goes. But I really still enjoyed it. Nice coming of age. We get a Filipino Chinese protagonist still in the Philippines, still living in Southeast Asia, so it wasn't like a diaspora situation. That I really enjoyed seeing like that culture again. It made me feel warm and fuzzy, even though I am not Filipino Chinese. I'm Filipino. I think there's some Chinese in there, lots of Spanish. We found out really late in life, which was kind of heartbreaking. That's not good. But that is it for the books that I read in February. If you guys have any recommendations for more books you want me to read, I do have a lot more arcs to get through, so I'll be getting through those, no worries. But if you guys have any more things you want to discuss about the books or want more questions about, let me know in the comments down below and I'll discuss them for you. All of my reviews will be linked down below of this, which will also cover extensively the trigger warnings for all of these books should they have any. But until next time, hit like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!